All right. I think it's live. Let's wait for YouTube to confirm that we is live. So it's gonna take a few more seconds. I'm still waiting. I can sing you a song time. The audio doesn't sound too good. Yeah, change. It doesn't want to switch to my AirPods. I'm waiting for you. Ta-da-da, ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Well, looks like it's switching now. What? No, still not switching. Let's try. Ta-da. No, using to switch to the AirPods. Oh, my. All right, I think now it's working. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I am milk. Ti-da-di-da-na-na-na. Ti-da-da. Okay, I think we're good. It's okay. The audio is okay. It's fine. Everything is fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I could reset the stream, but there's no such button. I'll maybe one day. Anyway, this is now we're starting. Okay, so we're going to be reviewing today. Oh, we're not sharing. Let me share my screen. My screen, carbon
and
uh, Captain Capture, carbon capture. Okay, so this is from Thunderfoot with 1.03 million subscribers. This guy is a PhD in chemistry or something, and he's all in on the global warming agenda. Like he's what's known as a globalist. He usually takes the globalist position. So he's anti-Brexit and he's anti-Trump, and he's, of course, global warming is going to kill us. But also, he's anti-feminist. I mean, he's had his share of um, strife and conflict with the feminists. Anyway, he's usually, I appreciate his opinion. He is scientific and seems to know chemistry and and physics. Many times I've heard him speak, and I get a lot of insight from a lot of his videos. But many times his videos are utter nonsense. So sometimes he's just nonsensical. Like during COVID, it was utter nonsense. And I would say Brexit, his analysis of Brexit is nonsense. He's not a capitalist. He's a leftist. On many topics, he is a leftist. And on global warming, he is a leftist. So this is one of his global warming thingies. Uh, is my stream okay? I just saw it glitch. Yeah, I can hear myself kind of well. All right, looks okay. Oh, we have a visitor. We have a visitor. It says, Hella Dance Moves 916. Hola, slave. Hello, Mr. Hella Dance Moves 1916. You can join me. You have the link. You can join me and help me co-host. So it's less boring if you want. Anyway, let's begin. Let us begin now with the how. So let's start listening. So I kind of listened to this video like with half an ear, as they say, and it suddenly dawned on me that Thunderfoot does not understand the carbon cycle. So without understanding the carbon cycle, I'll go over the carbon cycle. Hopefully you'll understand it, and maybe when Thunderfoot listens to this video, he'll begin to understand it. It's really not complicated. There's no reason to get lost in the carbon cycle. But without understanding the carbon cycle, you really can't say anything about global warming. I mean, you can do very deep chemical and climate and physical and simulation and analysis. You can go very deep, but without understanding the carbon cycle, I don't think you can do much. I mean, the carbon cycle is the most fundamental scientific part of trying to make sense of global warming, what is going on with the global warming. So I don't think um, Thunderfoot understands it. I don't think he understands it, which is bizarre because he is a scientist. He is a PhD, and I've heard him attack other PhDs when it came to physics. He's not a physicist, but I mean, he knows his stuff. I mean, he's a smarty. He's a smart guy. I'm not going to take that away from him. But he does not seem to understand it. Okay, I don't want to drag this out too much, but I know it is. It kind of gets a little bit confusing, I guess, for people listening to this for the first time, and and I don't know if I'd be able to follow the science parts of Thunderfoot. The whole point is that you don't have to understand his science, because that's the beauty of understanding the carbon cycle. You don't need to understand any science besides the carbon cycle in order to understand that global warming is literally physically impossible. If you understand the carbon cycle, you don't need to understand any other piece of science. You don't need to understand chemistry besides the little bit of chemistry of the carbon cycle. You don't need to understand any physics. There's no need to understand physics. There's no need to understand anything. There's really, you need to understand very little in order to understand that global warming is absolutely physically impossible. It's an impossibility, absolute impossibility. I mean, unless we take into account quantum fluctuations blowing up the universe and stuff like that, but that's not really important. Let me just take a sip of water. Mhm. It's very important to drink water, especially when you're thirsty, because there's, this is actually relevant to the carbon cycle. So the body is is a smart machine. Now, it's not a smart machine because any engineering went into it. It's a smart machine because when it dehydrates, when it loses water, you can, the body feels it. I don't really know how. That's not the part I know, but but all biological systems evolved, I guess, to recognize a deficiency or an instability, and they react. And biological systems, as long as as long as we let evolution do its magic, so animals and all creatures, all biological systems are going to self-moderate. So if you're thirsty, you should drink. If you're hungry, you should eat. Whatever you feel like doing, you probably should, because the body has evolved to recognize its deficiencies. And we'll soon see how this relates a little bit to the carbon cycle. But hold on, let me just get a few more sips. Mm. I just ate a lot of meat and a lot of salt, so I guess that made me thirsty. I'm usually not that thirsty, but as you see, right? I ate salt. The body realizes whatever, and the body does its magic. And that's it. Okay, let's continue. Okay, let me just make sure the audio is nominal. Okay, it's okay. Let me get rid of the comment. I ate. Let me hear it again. One, two, three. Yeah, I don't like the audio. The audio is not perfect, but I'm traveling and I don't have my microphone with me, unfortunately. So hopefully in a week we'll resolve this issue. I'll be back home. That's my hope. All right. So I started listening to this video. I listened to most of the video, but not really wholeheartedly. I just in the background and because I'm usually not looking to understand the deep science. It doesn't seem interesting to me. The details usually are not important, and I'm usually busy doing something else, and I don't really care much for the. I mean, it's nice to know, the details in chemistry and everything. It would be nice to take the time and really understand it, but it's not really important because what I noticed is that, as I said, Thunderfoot does not understand the most important aspect of analyzing the climate, whatever, climate change, whatever, global warming, climate catastrophe. The most important thing, understanding what's known as the carbon cycle, he's lacking there completely. He never even brings up, I don't think he ever brought up the carbon cycle, which, if you talk about global warming, you don't bring up the carbon cycle, then I don't know what to tell you. And come to think of it, no one I've ever listened to analyzing global warming, no one ever brought up the carbon cycle on either side of the debate, which means it's really weird. I would say both sides are talking past each other. If they don't bring up the carbon cycle, I think there's no way to convince each other without really talking about the carbon cycle. The only way, I think, the only way to understand if there is a possibility of global warming is through understanding the carbon cycle and discussing the carbon cycle. And I don't think anyone ever discussed on YouTube, at least in any of the debates. I don't think anyone ever discussed the carbon cycle. Maybe Alex Epstein once mentioned the source of fossil fuels. I don't think besides that anyone ever even said the words carbon cycle. I actually never heard the term carbon cycle until I don't know how I came across it and I discovered, oh, it's like I basically had to invent the carbon cycle before I discovered it on Wiki as an entry on Wikipedia. There's an entry, carbon cycle. I'm not going to go in there right now. We'll start listening to Thunderfoot and his video, and okay, let's start listening, and we'll start from that. Okay, enough exegesis. Enough. What do you call it when somebody talks instead of showing? Forgot. Okay, let's listen.
And CO2 can be extracted from the atmosphere and stored underground to create negative emissions and reduce the CO2 content of the atmosphere.
So this is our prototype air contactor. This is the smallest model.
Yeah, so I think he wants to, right, you can see from the title, carbon capture busted, exclamation question mark. So this has to do with carbon capture. So if you know what the carbon cycle is, you already know that this is utter nonsense. So maybe we should just, I guess, talk about the carbon cycle and why carbon capture is a no-go just because of the carbon cycle. That's like carbon capture makes no sense. All right, so I guess we're gonna do a detour. We did it once, let's do it again. It shouldn't take a long time. Sorry. Sorry. So let me go on another tab to Wiki. I hope to remember to come back so you guys can hear the video when I continue. Share this tab. All right, so here is, I did Wikipedia carbon cycle. And here's Wikipedia carbon cycle. See, I was here 1 week ago in my last video, and here is a diagram. Okay, let's go into this entry. And all we need is this diagram. We don't even need the whole diagram. All right, so what is the carbon cycle? So the carbon cycle just says that in the beginning, there was an atmosphere that contained CO2, right? Earth started in the beginning of Earth for approximately 4 billion years ago. And this is when you know an analysis is a good analysis, when people start from first principles. So usually no one starts from 4 billion years ago. They start from who knows however many years ago, or tens, or hundreds, or thousands, or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions. No, no one goes to the beginning, to 4 billion years ago. But really, it's very simple. If you go to the beginning, you simplify, everything becomes simple. And that's the only way to do a proper analysis. You start from the beginning. So in the beginning, there was CO2 in the atmosphere. I don't think there was C anywhere else. So the only carbon in the beginning was in the atmosphere. I don't think there was any carbon in the original rocks of the planet. I don't think so. Mm, if we look at this diagram, right, so we see atmosphere, I guess 800 parts per million or something, and 120 plus 3, I guess, in the clouds, and 60 in the soil, they say 2300. I guess normal soil has 2300 parts per million carbon. So, or I guess it's not really important because it's not really part. I don't think it's part of the cycle. But mm, anyway, so in the beginning, all the carbon was in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide, and then life evolved on Earth, and the first life that evolved did photosynthesis. I think it's like the first life. Maybe there was previous life in the ocean that was used lava or lava like pipes or something. But the main life form that took over the planet, I think, did photosynthesis. So we had life. So the planet became a life of, I think, single cells that did photosynthesis. So this life, it used to take the CO2 from the atmosphere, and using photosynthesis, it used to take the carbon from the atmosphere. I guess it was in the sea. So it used to take the carbon from the atmosphere, and it used the carbon to build its body. So all life on Earth is based on carbon. We are all carbon-based life on this planet. So the carbon atom is a very useful atom in order to build very complex molecules. It's really good. So that's what happened. So life is carbon. So the carbon is the carbon from the carbon dioxide, which was available in the atmosphere as soon as the Earth was formed. The Earth was formed with plenty of carbon dioxide. I don't know where it came from. It's like the planet is an agglomeration or conglomeration of dust particles and gases that collected. So we're going to just assume that. So as soon as Earth was formed and cooled down, there was plenty. I mean, basically, there was plenty of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And this first life that was formed used to take this carbon dioxide and light from the sun and used a process we call photosynthesis. And in this process, energy is inserted into the molecule of carbon dioxide. And using this energy, the molecule of carbon dioxide is split into the carbon and into the dioxide. Now, the dioxide is the waste product. So the photosynthetic single-celled organisms, these initial life, they just wanted the carbon, and the oxygen was actually a toxin that they needed to dispose of. So they disposed of the oxygen into the atmosphere or into the water and then to the atmosphere. And they absorbed the carbon. And the carbon they used in order to build their own bodies. They were built out of carbon. A single-celled organism is a bunch of carbon-based molecules. And multicellular organisms are just the same. At the fundamental level, it's basically, as far as I know, every organic molecule is carbon based. Like if you open an organic chemistry textbook, as far as I know, it's called organic. Organic chemistry just means carbon based chemistry. That's what it means. And organic just means life. So okay. All right. So this life, these photosynthesizing cells, they used to eat. Let me just look to see that everything's okay. Let me listen to the. Yeah, it's okay. So these creatures, this plant life, initial, it's not even plant life. It's just single-celled organisms that did photosynthesis. That's how they lived their lives. They built themselves out of the carbon that they harvested from the atmosphere, added energy. The energy was needed in order to split the carbon from the oxide, the dioxide, and this energy is just light from the sun. It just so happens that the right frequency has the right energy, and that's what happens. And then they use the carbon to build their bodies. And this was the first life, and it basically took over the planet. And everything was very nice. No one complained. Everyone was fairly happy, and basically the whole planet became just single-celled photosynthetic organisms. And then later, actual animal life formed, like non-photosynthesizing life that just ate up, that ate. I don't know what they ate in the beginning, but soon, I guess they started eating these photosynthetic cells. I don't know exactly how the first non-photosynthetic cells appeared, but we had non-photosynthetic cells, and they learned to use the oxygen for energy. The dispose as soon as there was enough oxygen in the atmosphere, so this new life appeared that is non-photosynthetic, and they started using the oxygen in the atmosphere for energy. Basically, they used to eat the photosynthetic cells, and they used to take the carbon from the photosynthetic cells and combine it with the dioxide that was disposed of in the atmosphere. And when you combine under proper temperature the carbon with the dioxide, you get energy because it just so happens it's a lower level. Carbon dioxide molecule is at a lower energy level than carbon separated from dioxide. So that's what we do today when we eat sugars, carbs. We take the carbs and we breathe, we inhale the oxygen, and we combine the oxygen with the carbon that we consume. And that's the energy that we have in order to move around and and do stuff. And we use some of the carbon in order to build our bodies. We use some of the carbon to build our bodies because we too are made out of carbon. And we use the dioxide from the atmosphere in order to combine it with some of the carbon in order to get energy. So some of the food we eat is protein, which is, I guess, molecules that are pre-built or something in order to build our bodies. And some of the molecules we use are carbs, are sugars, and they're more flammable, I guess. I obviously don't know chemistry. I'm really, this is super layman. This is really, I never went deep into this. But as you can tell, I'm able to discuss this in a way that no one has ever discussed it, that I've ever heard. And I'm able to give you the complete picture of the whole global warming mechanism, the whole carbon cycle mechanism. And soon you will see that you can easily destroy any climate scientist, any chemical scientist, any biology scientist, all the scientists, all the fancy scientists. You can eviscerate them thoroughly, hopelessly, with basically zero, almost zero understanding of math and science and chemistry and biology. And and you can show that, as they say, the emperor has no clothes. Let me just take another sip of water. Hold on. Hmm. 1 second. Okay, hold on. Let me see that the audio is good. This is a very important discussion for all the next generations. All right, so let's go back to the carbon cycle. Okay, so these new animals, which were single-celled, they used to be non-photosynthetic, and they also took over the world. So the world now had two big empires: the photosynthetic empire of single-celled organisms and the non-photosynthetic empire of single-celled organisms. And they actually cohabitated. Actually, they needed each other because the photosynthetics, if they lived alone, they would completely intoxicate the atmosphere until there was no more carbon dioxide left, and then they would die because they need carbon dioxide in order to live. So, and the animal, the non-photosynthetics, they must have a name, but anyway, the non-photosynthetics, they needed the photosynthetics because otherwise there's no free oxides in the atmosphere and they wouldn't be able to get any energy. They could eat each other for carbon, but they cannot have oxygen without photosynthetics breaking down CO2. So these two life form empires lived side by side on Earth for millions and I think billions of years, basically until today. All right. However, right, still at this point, there's no fossil fuels. However, approximately 365 million years ago, not too long ago, evolution, for some peculiar reason, invented bark or wood, or I think it's also called cellulose or something. Wood. So until now, there was no wood. Let's say multicellular creatures evolved. So we had like 300, let's say about 400 or half a billion years ago, we already had multicellular plants, multicellular animals living side by side, but we still didn't have any wood. So approximately half a billion years ago, wood was invented. Evolution invented wood. Simultaneously, multiple species of plants had a subspecies or phyla, or however you categorize in taxonomy, animals and plants. So a bunch of, in the tree of life, simultaneously, a bunch of species invented wood, and wood was invented, and everyone was delighted. However, now we get to the problem. So when wood was invented, there was no animal or creature or single-celled or multi-celled creature that knew how to consume it. No animal evolved yet. When wood evolved, it was ahead of its time, so that there was no counter offensive in the tree of life that knew how to consume wood. So this wood ended up just getting buried. Now they call this fossilized, but obviously that's not what happened. I mean, when something fossilizes, so actual soil takes over the body wherever there is, uh, I guess, bone and flesh. So soil takes over and hardens, and there's no carbon in a fossil. When you take a fossil is like a rock. It's made out of the same material as a rock. I don't think there's any carbon in a fossil. So when we talk about this wood that's just got buried, right? It died and it laid there on the ground, but soon because of whatever, so it got buried and it didn't fossilize. So the name fossil fuels is actually a misnomer. It's incorrect. So we really should stop using it. But the anti humans, the leftists, they're not really leftists. I mean, they're just anti-humans. So they like the term fossil fuel because it's like fossil is like a derogatory term for something ancient and outdated, and they just want to denigrate this fuel, this source of energy. But really, it has nothing to do with the process of fossilization. It's not a fossil. So we should, whenever someone says fossil fuels, you should start asking them, what do you mean by fossil? Where is the fossil? I go to the gas station. I didn't notice fossils being filled in my gas tank. I'm sorry. So could you clarify the term fossil fuels? So already you can run circles around these liars because using the term fossil fuel is a lie. So that's already. So if you understood nothing from this discussion, you should at least take that. Fossil fuels, obviously there's no fossils in the fuels. So you should ask all these experts to use the term fossil fuels to clarify why they use the term fossil. And if there's no reason that they should stop using the term fossil fuels and either call it fuel or biofuel, call it whatever you want. Don't call it fossil. It's not a fossil. Hold on, let me drink. Okay, 1 second. I might have to cut this short because if it's too, I mean, you already probably have enough information. The wise ones among you already have enough information to understand how to completely eviscerate anyone that believes in global warming. But maybe we'll go a little bit further. Let me just see how long we've been here. 41 minutes. The first 10 minutes was trash because of audio issues. Let me make sure my audio is good. Give me a second. Hold on. Me, my, mo, me, my, mo. How does it sound? Yeah, it sounds okay. All right, all right. Let's continue with the carbon cycle. Now, everything I'm telling you, I never read it. I'm just assuming you can read it in the entry carbon cycle. No, let's read a little bit of it. The carbon cycle is that part of biogeochemical cycle by which carbon is exchanged among the biosphere, pedosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere of Earth. Sounds okay. I don't know what pedosphere is, but whatever. Other major biochemical cycles include the nitrogen cycle and the water cycle. Right, water cycle we learned in kindergarten, but I didn't learn about the carbon cycle ever. So some people told me that they learned about the carbon cycle in kindergarten. Okay. Carbon is the main component of biological compounds, as well as a major component of many minerals such as limestone. Okay, so you can see pictures of rocks. I guess they have a lot of carbon. The carbon cycle comprises a sequence of events that are key to making Earth capable of sustaining life. It describes the movement of carbon as it is recycled and reused throughout the biosphere, as well as long-term processes of carbon sequestration, storage, to and release from carbon sinks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is exactly what I've been explaining, but I guess in more like sciencey terms. To describe the dynamics of the carbon cycle, a distinction can be made between the fast and slow carbon cycle. The fast carbon cycle is also referred to as the biological carbon cycle. Fast carbon cycles can complete within years, moving substances from atmosphere to biosphere, then back to the atmosphere. Which is what we mentioned, basically these two life forms, the photosynthetics and the non-photosynthetic. So a photosynthetic lives and a non-photosynthetic would eat it, chew it up, but then die. And when it dies, the photosynthetic would use it to recycle it. So they recycle each other. So this guy eats that guy eats this guy, and this is in an infinite loop. Slow or geological cycles are called deep carbon cycle, can take millions of years to complete, moving substances through the Earth's crust between rocks, soil, ocean, and atmosphere. Yeah, and that's basically what they call fossil fuels, right? Human activities have disturbed the fast carbon cycle for many centuries by modifying land use and, moreover, with the recent industrial scale mining of fossil carbon, coal, petroleum, and gas extraction, and cement manufacture from the geosphere. I don't know what they mean by human activities have disturbed. Like the term disturbed is a very judgmental term. I mean, we are animals. We are part of the animal kingdom. So if you say that we disturb, so you can say that every creature on this earth disturbs the rest of the creatures. So obviously that's utter nonsense. But Wikipedia is written by extreme leftists. So I guess this is where it comes into play. Okay, so carbon dioxide in the atmosphere had increased nearly 50% over pre-industrial levels by 2020. So we can show that that's impossible. That is absolutely impossible. I don't need to take any measurements to conclude that that's an impossibility. In the long run, it's impossible. Uh, it sounds, and I know it sounds really weird. I mean, they might actually have measurements Uh, I mean, um, I'll show you why I think it's impossible, and then you can correct me and show me where my analysis is wrong. I'm fine with that. Wait, I just heard a tick, but I don't see anything on the screen. Okay, let's continue. So carbon dioxide in the atmosphere had increased nearly 50% over pre-industrial levels by 2020, forcing greater atmospheric and Earth surface heating by the sun. Um, all right, that's whatever. I mean, if the first part is impossible, so the second part is impossible. And I'm not here right now to discuss whether global warming is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I would obviously say global warming, if it ever took place, is a terrific thing. Obviously, because most life, as far as I know, dies in the winter. Very little life dies in the summer. The problem is the cold. So if the Earth is a little bit warmer, we're talking about 1 degree on average, which is tiny, 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 tiny. I mean, you right now, wherever you are, the air between your feet and your head is probably a difference of more than 1 degree. So obviously, global warming, if it's real, is utter nonsense, even if it's real. But that's not what we're here to discuss. I'm here to claim that the very fundamental, very, very fundamental notion that carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere could ever increase, we can prove mathematically that that's impossible. That can never happen. Let's continue. And again, you're welcome to show me where I'm wrong. I'm not here to be proven right. I'm here to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong. I will delight in being proven wrong. Obviously, no one pays me. I wish somebody paid me to express my opinion. Unfortunately, no one pays me to express my opinion. So, unfortunately, I am objective for all intents and practice, for all intents and practices and something. The increased carbon dioxide has also caused a reduction in the ocean's pH value, impossible, and is fundamentally altering marine chemistry, impossible. The majority, these are mathematically impossible. We're going to prove it. The majority of fossil, when I say mathematically, I just mean if we made mathematical assumptions and we build a mathematical model of the planet, we will see that it's mathematically impossible. These claims are mathematically impossible. These claims are a violation of the, the theory known as logic. So if you assume logic, you can prove that these claims are impossible, are counter logic. All right, the majority of fossil carbon has been extracted over just the past half century. How do they know this? And rates continue to rise rapidly. How do you know? How do you know that the majority? How do you know how much fossil carbon is stored underground? How do you know this? How do you know this? I've never heard of anyone that knows how much fossil carbon is stored underground. So I don't know how they can make this claim. So I claim this is a lie. A lie, I think the definition of a lie is when you make a claim pretending you have reason to believe a claim, where the reality is you have no reason to believe a claim, such as if you claim to believe 1 plus 1 equals 3, but you have no reason to believe 1 plus 1 equals 3, then when you say that you believed 1 plus 1 equals 3, then you are lying. So this is a lie. The majority of fossil carbon has been extracted over just the past half century. You don't know that. I don't know this. I don't know how they know this. I don't think anyone knows this. And I happen to always listen to everything that has to do with global warming and fossil fuels and all that. And this is a known feature of the discussion. We don't know what's left underground. I'm sorry. We might have barely touched the underground fossil fuel deposits. So I don't know how they could know this. If I don't know, I claim they don't know. And rates continue to rise rapidly. That might be true. All right. Contributing to human caused climate change. No, we will show that that's a violation of logic. That is impossible. We will make certain assumptions. We'll build a model of the Earth, very similar to the model in this diagram, and we will show that based on a very simple model of the Earth, these claims simply cannot be. I'm so sorry. Whoever wrote this, yeah, you're lying. You have no reason to make these claims. You might as well say that 1 plus 1 equals 17.575928 for no reason whatsoever. Anyway, I'm not going to go and continue reading this nonsense. I will explain to you. What they have described is really not the carbon cycle. I mean, this is just propaganda that has to do more with global warming than with the carbon cycle. They have not discussed the carbon cycle, and even this diagram is so terrible. Like when you look at the water cycle, you can read the water cycle diagram, make so much sense out of it. You can barely understand this diagram, make sense out of it. I cannot make sense out of this diagram, and I know I can explain to you the carbon cycle, but I don't know what this diagram is all about. Like the way they show it, the fossil fuels are not part of the cycle. Where is the cycle? The only place, sorry, I see a cycle is here. I don't know. Can you see my cursor when I move it around? Yeah, you can see my cursor. Okay, so that looks like a cycle, but they show that the fossil fuels are not part of the cycle. So the whole point of the carbon cycle is to show that the fossil fuels, the fossil pool, is a part of the cycle. This is the whole thing. When we extract fossil fuels from underground deposits, we're just recycling. We're just recycling the carbon that came from the atmosphere in the beginning of the Earth. We're just replenishing the CO2, or we're just replenishing the C. The O2 is not underground. What's underground is just C. It's just the carbon. And so we're replenishing when we burn fossil fuel, when we burn carbon into the atmosphere, we're recombining it with its original old friend from which it was broken apart half a billion years ago, approximately. So we're just putting these two friends together. We're just recycling these two friends, and now they're happy together as they were before evolution invented the trees that separated the carbon from the oxygen. So even this diagram is a complete, utter nonsense. Oh, here they show fossil fuels, cement, and land use change. And they show an arrow of 9, I guess, parts per million. But they're not showing that it comes from here. Really, what you need to show is atmosphere. The carbon cycle really is very simple. It should be atmospheric CO2 goes into plant life that has wood half a billion years ago, and the wood goes underground and becomes what's known as fossil fuel, misnomer. And then humans, and then evolution invented humans, just like evolution invented trees. Evolution invented humans in order to bring back the carbon, right? Because this carbon is part of the biosphere, but it's being sequestered away from the biosphere. The biosphere was very sad because the biosphere kept losing carbon. The biosphere depends on carbon. The biosphere kept bleeding carbon to underground deposits, and the biosphere was crying. So one day the biosphere decided to invent humans in order for humans to dig up these old carbons buried for the past 500,000,000 years, bring them up and burn them, recombine them with the oxygen in the atmosphere from the original carbon dioxide. The dioxide kept waiting in the atmosphere for its good friend carbon, and humans, just as nature humans took the carbon from the underground deposits and brought them to the surface and burned them, recombined them so that carbon and oxygen could be together finally, just as they were in the beginning, and complete the cycle. So maybe we should draw the diagram. Let me see how much time we've been here. 57 minutes. Oh, we have so many people with us. Hold on, let me see. Mr. Slave, you are terrific. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. And Playboy Chris is terrific. Yes, Playboy Chris is terrific, definitely. This is Playboy Chris. Yes. Javier, Mr. Slave has nightmares that Greta Thunberg is taking the highways away from us. Yeah, Greta Thunberg is definitely, I mean, Greta Thunberg is an enemy, is the real enemy. I mean, this is like the poor emperor and the great Darth Vader having their discussion about the new enemy in A New Hope. No, in Empire Strikes Back. So the emperor tells the great emperor tells Darth Vader, "We have a new enemy." So this is how I feel towards Greta Thunberg. So she is the enemy of the Empire. And if you don't know this, I'm actually pro-Empire. I think the Jedi are evil, just as Darth Vader said before he turned uh, to what is known as the dark side, but it's not the dark side. The Empire, the dark side of the Force is actually the light side of the Force. And the Jedi side of the Force, that's the dark side of the Force. That's how I see it. And the Jedi are hippies, are anti, they are against, they're anti-human. They live alone in caves, and they don't like technology, and they don't like having families, and they don't enjoy life. They're against enjoying life. So obviously that's terrible. Whereas the emperor, he wants to build an empire and he wants to build skyscrapers. So obviously he's pro-human. And the poor guy has to fight these brainwashed, evil people known as Jedi, properly called Jedi scum. Very unfortunate. But because the Jedi won, so they wrote Star Wars. So Star Wars was written by the winners, as if the Emperor did something wrong and the Jedi were the good guys. Obviously, the winners get to write history, so but we know that the Emperor and the Empire, obviously, I mean, where would you want to live? Do you want to live in the Empire, or do you want to live in one of the where the Empire doesn't rule? I know I'd like to be part of the Empire, obviously. Anyway, but it's up to you. Anyway, so do I have nightmares about Greta Thunberg? Look, Greta Thunberg is an international terrorist. She made threats against politicians, and And no one even filed a complaint with the police against her. Her speech at the UN is nothing short of making threats against politicians, which are civilians. So, I mean, this is international terrorism, and no one has ever taken any steps against her. So it's not like I have nightmares about her as much as I know we are doomed. Humanity is doomed, and unfortunately we can show that every alien civilization has their Greta Thunbergs that bring them down and destroy them. So we know why there are no aliens. This is the solution to the Fermi paradox, unfortunately. Karen says, yeah, it's life. Yes, it's life. It's life. Anyway, maybe we should stop here because I mean this is gonna get really. I mean I think maybe I should stop. Maybe we wanted to make a drawing. Let's make a drawing. Let's draw something. How can we draw something online? Let me see. Draw online. Make an online drawing. Auto draw. Let me see if this works. Share. Start drawing. Okay, the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle. Okay, so how does the carbon cycle work? So we have, in the beginning, we had CO2 in the atmosphere, right? First principle. That's how everything began. We're assuming CO2 in the atmosphere. We don't need CO2 anywhere else. And we're going to then create life, photosynthetic life, photosynthetic life. So photosynthetic life, what does it do? It takes the CO2 with light from the sun. So we need the sun. So let's add the sun. So here is the sun. And we need a sun ray and CO2. Let's take some CO2, CO2. Oh, CO2, not C02. So we take CO2 and sun. So we use the sun. I need like an arrow that's like a light beam, but there's no arrow. Auto draw, just draw. All right, so this is going to just be a light beam. This is just light. This is light. Well, the sun, all right. And this energy is going to split the C from the O2. So we're going to get C and O2. C and O2. O2, O2. C and O2 separate from each other. There's no way I can move this thing. Oh, okay. C and O2 separate. So we separate the C from the O2. Now, the O2 is actually the toxin. That's actually what the photosynthetic life wants to dispose of. So this is the garbage. This is, what do you call it? The garbage, the toxin, what is not needed, the garbage, I guess, garbage. So this gets disposed. Oh, my AirPods are dying. Oh my God. I have another set, but I don't know if it's gonna work, if exchanging is gonna work. Let me take the other set. Let me take the other set. Let me take one AirPod out of my ear. Put the other one in my ear. Go to settings, show Bluetooth. Connect the other one. Wait for it to connect. Wait for it to connect. I don't know why it's taking so long. It didn't work. Make sure your Bluetooth device is still discoverable. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work. Yeah. Yeah, let me see if the audio still works. Don't stop, go deeper. This is not so deep. This is just a proper diagram of the carbon cycle. Um, let me check. Let me check my audio that I didn't destroy my audio. Well, it hasn't been destroyed. Oh, you know what I can do? I can take one of my AirPods and charge it while the other one, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Let me get my charger for the AirPods case. What's the charge capacity in the charger? 34%. Alright, alright. I'm hot. Let me turn on the air conditioning. Alright, air conditioning. Oh, by the way, I'm out of water. I need to go get water. Oh, Jesus. It's like everything is falling apart simultaneously. Audio still good, says Karen. Oh, okay. Anyway, so the O2 is garbage. So that goes back into the atmosphere. So wait, let me see that the audio is still good. Is the audio still good? Me, my, mo, 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 me, my, mo. Yeah, the audio is good. Alright, so we're gonna take the O2 garbage and dump it back into the atmosphere. Now, the photosynthetic leftists at this point would be really, really terrified, and they would tell all the the other photosynthetics, the Greta Thunberg photosynthetics at this point would go to the rest of the photosynthetic UN and say, how dare you? How dare you dump the toxin O2 into the atmosphere? How dare you ruin my childhood? My childhood. You terrible people. Yeah, yeah, that's what the photosynthetic Greta Thunberg would say at this point. Because the photosynthetic life are mostly, I mean, they don't have any, what do you want them to do with the garbage O2? They're dumping it back in the atmosphere, but the atmosphere is supposed to have CO2. And the Greta Thunberg photosynthetics, she comes into the photosynthetic UN, and she tells them, how dare you? How dare you ruin my childhood and throw your O2 garbage into the pure CO2 atmosphere? How dare you? And she would yell and cry, and she would cry, and she would inhale and exhale, and look to the side, and look to the side, and she would tell the photosynthetic politicians, we'll be watching you. Yeah, 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 yeah. And and fortunately for us, the photosynthetic UN did not listen to the photosynthetic Greta Thunberg that day. And the photosynthetics kept on dumping their O2 garbage back into the atmosphere. And the atmosphere started filling with O2. You sound just like her. Yeah, she should teach. I mean, one thing about Greta Thunberg, I mean, she definitely should teach. I think it comes naturally to her. She says she is autistic or something, so I think it's natural for her to go into these hyperventilating states. I noticed there's another video on YouTube. There's self-identifying, what do you call it? Autistic kid. And he speaks exactly like her. He inhales and exhales and enters this panicking state just like her. So I think this is, I guess, this is anyway, but we can learn from her. So whenever you need to speak to someone and pretend that you care for something and that something means something, you just should exhale and inhale. Yeah, and just look to the side and look with your eyes to the other side and tell the politicians we'll be watching you. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue. So happily, the all the inhabitants of the earth, which at this point were all photosynthetics, they did not listen to Greta Thunberg photosynthetic, and they did not stop dumping the O2 back into the atmosphere and intoxicating the atmosphere. But in order for the photosynthetic life to flourish, they had to continue converting CO2 into C and O2. They had no choice. And they knew that they were destroying their own environment, because if they kept on going, the entire atmosphere would be converted into O2 and they would all suffocate to death. They knew that they were killing themselves, but you know, they had no choice. They had to continue doing this. So the atmosphere now has CO2 and now also has now the atmosphere also O2. It's not just CO2 but also O2. So we have a little bit of CO2 and a little bit of O2, and that's the way it is today. It's a mix of CO2 and O2. All right. So the CO2 is garbage, was getting dumped back into the atmosphere, and the C, well, when a photosynthetic life consumed CO2, so really it wanted the C, so it disposed of the O2 and it kept the C. The C is the carbon, and it used the C to build itself, to build more of itself. The biosphere is carbon. When we inject carbon into the biosphere consumes the carbon and grows. And you can already tell why concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere can actually never change. But we'll come back to this. Anyway, so the C now becomes the photosynthetic life. So we can draw an arrow. The C becomes the photosynthetic life. So the photosynthetic life in the beginning was some random C, some random molecules, some random atoms of C somehow were put together, and the first photosynthetic process started taking place, and the first photosynthetic life came into being through through random processes. But as soon as that process took place, we basically already have a cycle. If you notice, this is already a cycle, isn't it? Isn't it? No, no, no. There's no cycle yet. Because right now we're consuming all the CO2, right? Let's draw an arrow from this CO2 to this CO2. So right now there's no cycle yet, because this is the source. So right now there's a source and there's a sink. O2 is being injected, but there's no CO2 being, right? The CO2 is being depleted. This is a process by which CO2 is being depleted. The photosynthetic life grows. We're getting more and more photosynthetic life because we're injecting more and more C into the photosynthetic life. So this photosynthetic life blob or empire keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. But this is a sink. So you can see that the sea, this is the source. In engineering terms or in chemical terms, whatever, this is now the source. There's always a source and a sink. So this is the source and this is the sink. But it's not a cycle yet. Let that sink in. Can I move it? This is the sink. So we're depleting, so we can put a minus. We're depleting, we're continuously, and Greta Thunberg photosynthetic is crying in the UN, you're depleting CO2 from the atmosphere, and dying ecologies are dying. The CO2 is dying, says the photosynthetic Greta Thunberg in the UN. All right, let's continue. Let us continue. Let me see the status of the AirPod that I took out in order to recharge. Recharge. Come on, show me. Show me. Oh, it doesn't show if there's only one AirPod recharging? Well, that's terrible. Okay, let me take that out. Let's assume it recharged a little bit. Let me see that it got plugged in properly. Let's go back. Let me play. Wait, did somebody say something? No. So let me play back a little bit of the stream. Yeah, it sounds like it's good. So let me now take the left AirPod out. Let me see that's still working. Okay, hopefully it's okay. Let me recharge the left AirPod. It's my AirPod. Let's hope that it's being recharged. All right. Okay. Still no water in sight. I'm gonna die. There's no water here. Wait a minute, is there water in my... Oh, I have another bottle of water in my bag. Oh, thank the universe. One second, let me drink. Let me drink. Oh my God. Oh my God. One second. Oh. Oh. Oh my God. Okay. 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 All right, we can continue. But actually I have to get back to work. We've been here for an hour and 20 minutes. Let's go for a few more minutes. We're gonna have to stop soon. I can't go on forever. I can't save the universe. The universe is hopeless. We're not going to save it. We're just trying to have a little bit of a good time watching the universe self-destruct. But let's continue a little bit further. So there's no cycle yet. All right. So at this point, as the atmosphere starts getting filled, let's put a plus sign. So this is another sink. So the source is the CO2, and there's two sinks. Sink one is the photosynthetic life that keeps accumulating more and more carbon. And sink two is the O2 in the atmosphere. This is going to be sink two. Sink two. Sink two is the O2 in the atmosphere. So the arrows right now are not a cycle yet. So from the CO2, it's getting depleted, and Greta Thunberg photosynthetic is crying. And then gets split into the O2, and the O2 gets disposed of back into the atmosphere, and we call it sink 2, and the C gets swallowed up and becomes the very fabric of the photosynthetic life, and that is sink 1. Fantastic. Now at this point, new life emerges. A new life form emerges. It might have actually been a photosynthetic mutation. Some photosynthetic mutation might have lost its photosynthetic, or just it gained the ability to use the O2 for energy, to combine it with C, with found C, and it could recombine the C and the O2 and gain energy from it. So I guess a new mutation life form, let's call it the non-photosynthetic life, emerged, especially as there was more and more oxygen in the atmosphere. So there was pressure, there was evolutionary pressure for a new life form to emerge that could use this O2, because as more and more O2, as the concentration of O2 was rising in the atmosphere, the photosynthetic life growth was slowing down, and they might have started collapsing. At this point, entire ecologies were collapsing, which is what the photosynthetic Greta Thunberg at the UN speech was all about, that the entire ecologies are collapsing. Right, but this just created evolutionary pressure for new non-photosynthetic life to arise that would combine, that would employ, that would use the O2 concentration in the atmosphere and the dying ecologies of seas, the weak photosynthetic life, immobile. I mean, photosynthetic life, I think, is immobile, I think, mostly. So these new animals, they could get energy, and they could get the C. So they could eat the photosynthetic life, they could extract the C and take the O2, combine the C and the O2, get back this energy from the sun, right? This is like a lightning, but it's the reverse lightning. How do you undo? Can you undo? Is there an undo? Undo. So this is a lightning going in. So new life form, this is the non-photosynthetic life that now emerges. Non-photosynthetic life now emerges that invents the ability to eat up photosynthetic life, take their C, gulp them down, take their C and combine it with the O2 and get this energy out. So they have energy. So they take, let's do this here. So they take the C and the disposed of O2. They eat life forms. They eat photosynthetic life. They eat the C, and they inhale. Well, that's not good. They inhale O2. Inhale O2. So they eat C, inhale O2, and they combine it, and they extract the energy out of it from this when they do this combination. And we still do it to this day. We get energy out of this when we recombine C and O2, sugar with O2, Not CO2. Jesus. Oh my God. What am I supposed to do with that? That's O2. So when you do this, you get CO2, but you also get energy. Poof, energy comes out. This is energy. Energy comes out, and you can use that energy. And you get CO2, and guess what happens to the CO2? So also CO2 is the result of this chemistry. So here is your CO2. So the result is CO2, energy and CO2. And they exhale the CO2 back into the atmosphere and replenish the CO2 in the atmosphere. And this is now, and the cycle is complete, as Darth Vader said to Obi-Wan Kenobi when they met at the final scene on the Death Star. The cycle is complete. So the cycle is we start from CO2. Can we have another color? Are there colors on these things? Instead of blue, everything is blue. Obviously, let's use red. So in conclusion, so the CO2 goes here, gets split into O, into C, and into O2. Let's talk about the C. The C goes into the photosynthetic life. Then the photosynthetic life gets eaten. We didn't mention this. It gets eaten. The C from the photosynthetic life, that C gets eaten. It's the same C, gets eaten. And the O2 is garbage. It went back into the atmosphere. But now this O2 gets inhaled. It's the same. Let's put 2 dots on this. This is the same O2. And from this combination, you get energy. Let's call it E. And you can move around and, whatever you want to use energy. This is the same energy. That same energy from the sun. So fossil fuel is actually solar fuel. We should call it solar fuel. It's not fossil fuel, it's solar fuel. The energy stored in the sea, the only way you can split C from O2 is with energy from the sun. This is known as solar energy. So the C, which is the fossil fuel, is actually solar fuel. The proper name is solar fuel, not fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is a lie. Solar fuel is the correct name. Let me just get a drink. Oh, this is so boring. Oh my God. Give me 1 second. Why hasn't anyone else discussed this until today? I honestly don't know. Why do I need to do this? Terrible. All right, anyway, so we take the C, we take the O2, right? The O2, this is the arrow. And now we get to the CO2 and that gets dumped back into the atmosphere, and now the cycle is complete. Very nice. We have a very, very nice cycle. CO2, C and O2. C, you can combine this, so you get a cycle. C goes in here. And to make the cycle, this goes in here. And the O2, right? We want to make sure we have a cycle. So the O2 goes in here, and the O2 goes in here, and the O2 recombines this way and back. So we can draw little arrows. So arrow, 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 arrow. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. The arrow is in the wrong direction, isn't it? Yeah. Let's undo this. We drew something in the wrong direction. Wrong direction. Wrong direction. All right. So this way, and then this way. The arrow is this way, and then this way. And then this way, and from here, it's this way, and this way. We could draw it, if we draw it this way, we're not going to get a cycle, but really it's to here, it doesn't matter. Here is the cycle, it's the same thing. And then this way, I mean, we really don't need this. This is not, but you know what, let's just remove it. So there's no confusion around that. So here is the arrow. Here is the arrow. Here is the arrow. The arrow. The arrow. The arrow. The arrow. 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 And now you have a cycle. The cycle has what's known as a bifurcation here, but that's fine. It gets split into two separate paths, but they recombine here. So here is the split. Let's maybe have a different color. Let's use maybe the yellow color. Wait, can you see this drawing, or am I talking to myself? Wait, there's the wrong direction. Wait. What's the wrong direction? Mr. Slave, O2 garbage. Wrong direction. What do you mean? You drink too much, stop eating meat. I don't know if I drink. Yeah, I now my tummy is about to blow up. I know. I need to learn balance. We definitely need Darth Vader to fulfill his prophecy of bringing balance to my tummy. I have too much water in my tummy now. Where's Darth Vader when I need him? All right. Wait, what do you mean wrong? I think I fixed the wrong direction. Let me go through this again. So here is the bifurcation. It's here that it splits. Our cycle splits into two paths, but they get recombined here. So the flow is perfect. We have a flow. Obviously, there has to be a perfect balance to the last atomic unit and the last bit of energy. But this is the carbon cycle. This is the carbon cycle. So now you can teach the carbon cycle to Wikipedia. The people at Wikipedia, I don't know what they had in mind when they drew this. I honestly don't know where their cycle is, but what I drew has a cycle. Now instead of photosynthetic life, So we can say, okay, it ate. So let's talk about the solar fuel, or what the leftists, the evil ones, the Greta Thunbergs, what they call fossil fuels, whatever. So we call it solar fuel. So where's the solar fuel in this discussion? So the photosynthetic life, when evolution invented trees, so you can say that these are trees. Imagine that the photosynthetic life is trees. Instead of just being single, at one point, instead of single-celled organisms, imagine that these are trees. These are trees. So let's maybe put a green around it. These are trees. So this so extracting the C, this part became I went too far. Undo. So this, or more correctly, this part, getting the C out of the trees became impossible, and the trees got buried for millions and hundreds of millions of years. For 500 million years, trees have been getting buried. And the biosphere was bleeding C. C was getting sequestered out of the biosphere, and the biosphere was losing C. And the biosphere is made out of C. Biosphere is just all life on Earth. So all life on Earth, I'm sorry, all life on Earth, sorry for the burp, I'm sorry, I'm happy. So the life on the Earth was bleeding C into the solar, into the trees, into the green. And this little cycle, you know what? Instead of a cycle, let's put an X. There was no way to get the C out of the trees for the past 500 million years, and as you can see, there is a flow of C into the trees. So this became a sink. Sink one is the solar fuels, is the wood that was just getting buried for millions and tens and hundreds of millions of years. So the biosphere kept on losing C. C was being drained out of the life of the biosphere. And then the biosphere said one day, let us create humans so that humans can save us before we die. Because if this would continue, then the biosphere would die. The biosphere noticed that it's about to die. The biosphere, they all got together and they said, hey, listen, we're gonna die. I mean, we're bleeding C, the literal lifeblood of the biosphere, which is carbon. We're bleeding carbon into the bowels of the beast of the earth. And all this carbon is getting sequestered. We're losing it. It's being deposited at the bottom of the earth, and there's no way we can get it out. We don't have the capacity. We are weak and old and outdated machinery, said the biosphere to itself. Both the photosynthetics and the synthetics, they were all saying this to each other. What are we going to do? We are doomed. They recognize that they are doomed. So they said, we have no choice. We have to create our savior in the form of mankind. And mankind will invent technology. And technology will save the biosphere until Greta Thunberg will come, the destructor of all life. But until she comes and destroys all life, then mankind, with its technology given to it from the gods themselves, humans with technology will rescue the biosphere from its imminent doom. So mankind came into being, and mankind, specifically men, Men have a tendency to be very technical, and men invented technology while women were beautiful. But men were busy in order to get the beautiful women. Evolution took care of this part. Evolution made women beautiful in order to motivate men, and evolution made men extremely motivated by beautiful boobies, so that men sat for hours and days and years to create technology in order to get access to beautiful women's beautiful bodies. And the women knew this. So the women were always selecting for the best technologists so that humanity became a techno sphere. So the technosphere came into being. And this is all the doing of the biosphere. The biosphere planned this out all in advance, all in order to save the biosphere from its imminent doom. And the wise and the technosphere, which is the men, in order to be selected by the beautiful women, they worked very hard, and they finally started digging up the solar fuel, which is the ancient carbon, the ancient part of the biosphere, which was trapped in the bowels of the beast. So finally, the saviors of the biosphere were able to rescue all the dead carbon trapped in underground deposits, and they rescued all this dead biosphere, and they burnt it into the atmosphere, as we see here. Let's use whatever. This is the burning of the solar fuel, which is the dead biosphere, combined with the O2, which is also a part of the dead biosphere. But humans were able to resurrect two dead parts of the biosphere, the O2, which is pure, the ancient toxins, and C, which is dead biofuels. And humans recreated the ancient CO2 from the ancient C, the ancient biofuels. And humans completed a cycle and revived the biosphere. I mean, the cycle has been complete, but not as far as the ancient trees are concerned. So for the past 500 million years, out of only about 4 billion years, the biosphere has been bleeding until men, techno men, came along and were able to dig up the graves, the ancient graves of specifically the photosynthetic life, because that is what wood is. And they dug it up and they burnt it into CO2. Yeah, this is the first time this cycle became complete. And the biosphere was very content, not contempt, content, very happy that day, because the biosphere fulfilled the ancient prophecy, because the biosphere created humanity in order for humanity to become a technosphere, in order for this technosphere to dig up the ancient dead bodies of the photosynthetics and resuscitate them. This is resuscitation, because by combining the ancient carbons with the ancient O2s and re-injecting them, recycling them, this is the most pure form of recycling. The carbon cycle is the original recycling process. So the techno, it's not a techno signature, it's not technocrat. Maybe it's technocrat, but technocrats is usually a derogatory term. This has been a good lesson, Mr. Slave. Yeah, unfortunately, why am I the first one to make this presentation in the history of this planet? Why? That's my question. But fine, I'll take the mantle on my shoulders, my weak shoulders. Anyway, so the cycle of life has been complete. The biosphere fulfilled the ancient prophecy that by creating humanity, the biosphere will be rescued. The biosphere couldn't know this a priori before. The biosphere took a chance by creating humanity. They didn't know that humanity will be its savior because some people, the Greta Thunberg photosynthetics, they prophesize that it's doomed and humanity is not, will never save the biosphere. But the emperor of the biosphere, he was wise and he knew not to listen to Greta Thunberg. He wasn't swayed by the terroristic and fascistic methods of the photosynthetic Greta Thunberg, even though he risked his life and even paid with his life. But thanks to him, thanks to his legacy, we're still alive. But because of the current Greta Thunberg, we're doomed. Nevertheless, for a moment, the biosphere was saved, and the cycle of life was complete. So, this is the cycle of life. This is the perfect cycle of life. This is the carbon cycle. And this is obviously a self-regulating cycle. If something is missing, somehow then the cycle will slow itself down. If everything is fine, the cycle would speed itself up. This is nature. And what the evil ones, what the Greta Thunberg ones call fossil fuels, we call solar fuels. Burning the solar fuels is essential. This is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the saving of the entire biosphere. That's how important the burning of the solar fuels, of the biofuels is. This is the burning of the solar fuels, of the biofuels. This is a fulfillment of the ancient prophecy. So this is the cycle of life. This is perfection. Okay, so we need this knowledge in order to start listening to Thunderfoot's dissertation and maybe make any sense of it. But really, we don't need to understand Thunderfoot. As we will see, he doesn't understand this cycle. He has no conception of this. He does not believe in this ancient prophecy that we have been enlightened to realize, to prophesize. This is the ancient text. This is the ancient prophecy that has now been fulfilled. So I'm going to stop here, and next time we'll use this knowledge that we have gained in order to start prognosticating what the Greta Thunbergs and the Thunderfoots and the rest of them, what they call global warming and climate change and whatever, all these all these false prophecies. We're going to analyze the false prophecies. We're going to prove mathematically that what they prophesize is against logic, is impossible, is logically impossible. It's not even physically, well, it is physically impossible, but this is just a model. This is a mathematical model of the universe. This is a simplified model of the universe. So this is a mathematical discussion. So we're going to have a mathematical discussion, a logical discussion, and we're going to prove that what they say is false prophecies, and what we have is the true prophecy, and we are a fulfillment. The burning of the solar fuels is a fulfillment of an ancient prophecy that we owe to the ancient ones. We are reviving, and there is still much ancient photosynthetic life trapped underground, waiting for us to resuscitate it, to bring it back to life. We are the only power known in the universe able to bring back these ancient relics of our ancient forefathers and family and rest of family members in the tree of life, in the tree of evolution. These are members. These are members of our family, and we owe them to be revived and to be brought back into life. And they're waiting for us to bring them back into life. And we have to risk our lives against the powers, the evil powers of the Greta Thunbergs. We have to fight these evil, terroristic, fascistic powers as they pretend to be pure and, little girls. But this is just pretend. There's great evil powers behind them, trying to keep our family dead, where our family cries from beneath the ground, begging us to bring them back into the folds of the living. Anyway, so we're going to continue next time. I don't know when, not today. I got to get back to work. So maybe tomorrow. It's been already 2 hours. But in the meantime, there's enough information here for you to spread to the rest of our family. Let them know the truth, the word of truth, the true cycle of life, our true meaning. This is the very meaning of our existence. This is why the biosphere created us. This is our purpose. This is our destiny. This is our prophecy. This is our legacy. So anyway, I'm going to stop here and we'll continue next time. Hopefully some of you actually understood some of the things I said. Obviously, everything I said, I absolutely believe it, and anyone is welcome to contradict anything I said. Obviously, it's extremely simple. This is simple enough for a little 4-year-old child to understand. This is as simple as the cycle, as the water cycle. So I don't know, maybe there is better diagrams than this. Maybe we should look them up. I don't know. Anyway, my dear friends, thank you very much for listening. I'm gonna go get back to work now. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Bye.